Due to extreme weather conditions brought about by climate change, water and grass supplies continuously decrease. This pushed U.S. ranchers to sell their livestock as they struggle to keep them alive. Want to know what the future holds for our domestic meat production? Well, stay tuned for more. What's good, you guys? This is Market Thrive, and today, we're going to talk about how this situation could possibly progress to mass starvation if not addressed properly. Before I start the video, I would just like you to do me a favor by just hitting that subscribe button and the bell notification down below to keep you updated on this channel. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Huge queues of trailers waiting to drop off cattle for the auction have been seen in pictures and videos that have gone viral on social media in recent days. Currently, almost everyone is commenting on how they have never experienced anything like this. If dry weather conditions continue in the southwest, the lines may lengthen considerably over the next few weeks. The proprietor of Decatur Livestock Market, Kimberly Irwin, reported that vehicles were packed a mile apart when they finally unloaded more than 2,600 animals, the most she has ever seen since the catastrophic drought in 2011. According to local news sources, North Texas has turned into the problem focal point. Numerous ranchers are being pushed to make some very challenging choices. Ranchers are selling thousands of cattle to clear out their herds since there isn't enough grass or water due to the unusually dry weather, and they want to do this before things deteriorate further. Selling their animals is a need for many of them in order to survive. According to USDA data, the great majority of the region's pasture and rangeland is in deplorable condition. In 83% of cases, the neighborhood is deemed to be poor or very poor. In addition, the study mentioned that the lack of rain and 100-degree temperatures have caused the grass to stop growing. In several counties, grasshoppers have been damaging the resources. Several stock ponds are currently experiencing water shortages as well. Ranchers typically feed their cattle hay when bad weather threatens their supply of feed. However, they can no longer afford to do it. In the past year, hay prices have increased by 56%. Cattle farmers reportedly lost money over the previous 2 months, according to a Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City study dated June. In other words, even if they could find hay for sale, doing so would no longer be practical. Jared Mountford, a rancher from Bridgeport, is one of the many who had to sell their cattle because of the exorbitant expense of feeding them. He said, quote, "It's gonna hurt and it's gonna hurt bad. It's a strain and sometimes you have to sell some cattle to keep a few," end quote. Others have no choice but to sell their entire herds since they are at a loss for what else to do. Because there isn't much hay available in Central Texas, many ranchers don't even have other means of feeding their cattle. Ranchers worry that some of the older livestock may not make it through the season due to the scorching weather. Cattle rancher Trenton Upmore said in a recent interview with KWTX, quote, "Some of these ranches are just totally out of grass, totally out of water. Their backs are against the wall. They don't have any other option," end quote. Bloomberg reports that while there will be an immediate influx of beef into the supply chain, a long-term cow shortage will affect the availability of meat for the next year. Bloomberg reported on Monday that most ranchers attending auctions are in a frenzy because they are desperate to get rid of their livestock. Ranchers are panicking, and Emory Livestock Auction, just over an hour drive east of Dallas, is experiencing roughly treble usual rates, according to 83-year-old auctioneer Jack Robinson. With the temperatures reaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit, they are unable to quickly sell their herds since it is too expensive to keep the animals alive. In addition to depleting grass hay supplies, the cost of water for feeding, fertilizer, and fuel has been soaring. 100 or so cows were recently sold by Scott Frazier, a crop and livestock farmer in coastal Nueces County. Quote, "It's hard to justify keeping them," end quote, he said, explaining that cattle often go into feed yards where they're fattened for the market. As a result, there will be more beef available in the immediate future but fewer calf-bearing cows in the years to come, which will result in smaller herds and even higher meat costs. Ranchers typically wait until their cattle have achieved a desired weight before finally selling them off during regular times. But as a result of their predicament, they are now being obliged to sell fewer quantities. Anthony Fibrel, a cattle rancher who has been in the business since the 1990s, claims that calves can weigh up to 600 pounds over a typical season. The rancher has now revealed that some of them were being sold for as little as 375 to 450 pounds. It makes sense that they are doing everything they can to sell their cattle before the drought ultimately results in the loss of their livestock. Ranching is a business after all, And these individuals are working hard to produce as much money as they can to maintain their operations. Most Americans rarely consider where the meat they consume on a daily basis actually originates from. And we rarely consider the fact that a relatively small number of ranchers are in charge of feeding the entire nation. Jared Mountford, a rancher in Texas, said that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how horrible we are. It matters that our country falls if we don't survive. And he is entirely correct. Without the dedication of our farmers and ranchers, our country would likely be now experiencing severe food shortages. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the future will be that bright. The national herd of cattle has been shrinking for the previous years. Due to the drought this summer, a large portion of the breeding herd is being sent to the slaughterhouse, which will reduce the number of calves for the next 2 to 3 years. Texas agriculture and livestock economist David Anderson says, quote, "We are shrinking the cow herd at such a rate that beef production is gonna decline. We're gonna have even fewer cows next year and we'll see reduced production for the next 2 years. I know producers want to hold on to cattle to be prepared for those high prices, but that long wait is going to be very difficult, particularly with feed costs and this ongoing drought." End quote. The most important thing for these ranchers is actually better weather. However, the forecasts for this week and the upcoming weeks indicate that hot weather is expected, which will be especially harmful to the Southwest. 85 million Americans were subject to heat advisories or warnings over the past weekend. Officials around the nation are advising people to use caution outside. Around 273 million Americans, or 85% of the country's population, might see high temperatures exceeding 90 degrees this week and over the following few weeks. Of those, about 55 million could experience high temperatures at or above 100 degrees. According to the Weather Forecast Center, daytime temperatures might reach 100 degrees or even 110 degrees in some parts of the Southwest. Anderson said, quote, "Drought is something that really weighs on people. I don't think there's anything worse because it affects everyone and covers such large areas. It can take multiple seasons to recover, especially when we're talking about range animal production." End quote. He added, quote, "After a drought, you'll typically see fewer calves the next year due to the stress the drought put on the cows. There is also the time required for range and pastures to recover. A 1-year drought may ruin a row crop for a year, but for a cattle operation that depends on grasses, we can be looking at multiple years to recover." End quote. The UN has issued a warning about the largest global food crisis in decades, which is happening at the same time as all of this. Food insecurity is already a problem for over 24 million Americans. Food supplies are becoming increasingly scarce as time goes on, and famines are beginning to break out all across the world. Food industry professionals have been warning about this deteriorating scenario for years and pleading with our leaders to intervene to stop or at least slow down some of these alarming tendencies before it's too late. However, no one was interested in hearing what they had to say, so here we are today. For the time being, we advise you to stock up on meat if you can before prices soar, as they won't return to their current levels for a while. It's safe to conclude that things will be much more disorganized in 2023 because the outlook for our food supply systems remains bleak. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think prices would continuously increase? Feel free to jot down your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like. And if you want to stay updated on our posts, hit that subscribe button as well. Once again, this is Market Thrive signing off.